What does the Trillium Party have to offer Ontario that the Conservatives, the Liberals, the NDP can't offer?
Well, first and foremost, no whip votes. The only vote that should be whipped is the budget. And the only bill that should be an omnibus is the budget. Because it amends various pieces of funding formulas and so on and so forth. Not having a whip vote means that the leader or the backroom boys have no control over me, and I will be able to stand up and represent my constituents. If something comes down the pipe that is unconstitutional, I can call them out on it, even if it's in my own party.
Have you seen this in action in the Trillium Party? Have they ever really stood up for their constituents?
Oh, you betcha.
Trillium Party of Ontario, we believe in honest, real, effective, simple solutions that are not going to benefit us as the MPPs or us as the party. Our solutions are based on the best interests of the people of Ontario. So I ask the people of Hastings County support me, because I will go to Queen's Park and I will stand up for what's right for not only you, but for Ontario. And we will bring the jobs back to Ontario.
So it's Garth Riley here. I'm actually in the studio on Trillium Talk TV with Bob Yachik. Bob, you asked me up here, and you said, "Come on up. I want to show you what we're doing."
I did, Garth.
And now you say to me, now you want me to pop you some questions.
Pop me some questions. Make it as hard as you want, because you know this is the big leagues, and let's see how well I can do under pressure. Because you know what, I heard a rumor that Ontario Parliament is not an easy place to be. So.
You know what? I first of all, I don't think it is. I think anybody doing what you're doing, and anybody that's running for public office, first of all, has to. Some people think you have to have their head checked. The other ones think that they have to be very, very almost like Teflon, because it's really tough. I mean, I've watched the antics that go on up there, Bob, and it's actually if you get close enough, it gets disheartening, and you see what you're up against. Now, you are the Trillium Party, and people will know if they look back. I've interviewed you before on my show. But here you are trying to make a difference and get involved here. It's an uphill battle. I mean, you can't even get onto some debates. Your party isn't sometimes even being acknowledged.
Well, that's happened, Garth, and I am not the Trillium Party. I'm a part of the Trillium Party.
That's fair.
And you know that we have a lot of candidates. We have like 40-some candidates so far, and it'd be nice to have an entire slate. We're working on it, but there's two types of people that get into politics, in my opinion, and I've been around politicians for a long time. Mm-hmm. There's opportunists.
Right.
And there's idealists. Opportunists are looking for a job, and a lot of those people are people that have, and this is going to sound harsh, but it's people that figure that I failed in life in a lot of things, but if I can trick people for 35 days, I'm going to have a job for 4 years I can't be fired from.
I can think of a lot of easier ways to try and... it's a tough grind. It takes money.
It is, but there's also something inside of you that it's a drug as well.
So you're saying to me, basically, some people are opportunists, other ones, this may be their calling. They figure they got to give it back. They want to be part of public service.
Then there's idealists.
Okay.
And I like to think I'm more than that. I'm an idealist. According to my wife, she says, we're sure not doing this for the money because the amount you have to sacrifice. I've been doing this for 4 years now. I was disheartened with the political process.
Right.
I saw what was happening. It's like a grind. Ontario politics in a nutshell is this. It's vote for the Liberals, get screwed over by the Liberals, be angry at them, vote for the PCs, elect them into office, get screwed over by the PCs, go back to the beginning and vote for the Liberals.
Okay, so you just described the last 25 or 30 years in Ontario politics. Mm-hmm. The real thing for you, I mean, and your candidates, a bit of an uphill battle. Honestly, you've been shut out of debates. You had to go in and stormtroop your way into a debate the other day.
No, that was the Jamaican Canadian Association. They allowed Kathleen Wynne. They allowed the Green Party, Mike Schreiner in there, and Andrea Horvath to go in there.
Right.
And Doug Ford didn't show up for whatever reason. He has his reasons. Not my concern. But when I asked to get in there, They locked me out. We have a sitting member, Garth. We have a sitting member that's holding the feet to the fire of the government and the official opposition and the NDP.
But some people would say, I'm going to jump on you, had Jack McLaren not decided to, basically leave and go and be the sitting member, he wouldn't have been there. There is that talk out there. Said, would have anybody elected Jack McLaren as a Trillium Party member?
I will let you know on June the 8th because I'm confident that Jack's going to win.
I like him.
confident.
I like Jack.
As you should, because he's the only guy that stands up and votes for his constituents.
True.
The bravest man in provincial parliament right now is Jack McLaren. In fact, Jack McLaren, I forget the date, about
When
a
he
month and a half
when he
ago,
got walked out?
when he actually was told to recant the truth.
Correct.
Withdraw the truth. And Jack is the only one that stood up and said, it's the truth.
Right.
You can't withdraw the truth.
Right.
And he chose to be escorted out rather than withdraw the truth. We have the kind of provincial government right now where you can say whatever you want in there, but when you do say the truth, you get thrown out. We have to fix that. Trillium Party's here to do that.
You guys don't have the funding that the Conservatives have.
You know that.
I do.
I know that every single day that I
understand
talk to my CFO.
Right. You don't have the funding. I've met candidates. I like your candidates. I've sat through some of your organizational meetings. I think it's awesome. From my point of view, you bring some sobriety. When Doug Ford came on and started taking some of your platform, that was a bit of an issue.
Some of my platform?
Well, the whole thing.
The whole platform. Then he stole my speech.
Right.
That bummed me out almost more than...
Right. But my question to you is, now all of this, what makes you keep going? Because, ultimately it looks like, people are either upset with Kathleen Wynne, which we know, and they don't necessarily like Ford, but they want some kind of change. Where's your voice? Where are you guys?
Okay. We're back to what I said earlier. The cycle of politics in Ontario. The thing that got us into this malaise. Conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal. We have to break the thing. Right now, Doug Ford invented a platform in 2 days. Mm-hmm. No, he found a platform. Yeah. Ironically, just a little aside here. I remember when Caroline Mulrooney took our slogan, said something. Our slogan for the Trillium Party is something different, something better. And we've been saying it for a lot of years. Caroline said something different, something new. And then Andrea Horvath, ironically, said on a TV show, something different, something better. And I go, oh, come on. So I wrote a tongue-in-cheek press release saying, people, take our platform, but please take our platform, but leave our slogan alone. And Doug did. So anyways, if you're wondering how we're making a difference, that's been done already. When Doug Ford stood up on the stage and he grabbed our entire platform and he put it down there, do I believe he's going to implement it? No, I don't. And the reason I say that is within 6 days, what do you say about the sex ed curriculum that got him to be leader? One of the sex ed curriculum to the social conservatives, he said it's at the bottom of his totem pole of things that need to be done in Ontario. And in a province, Garth, in a province that has 1,000 things wrong with it, when a politician has no problem saying it's at the bottom of the totem pole, I'll tell you, news alert, that's code for it's never getting done.
So, same old, same old.
Yeah.
So this is what's going to happen. You and your party members, people that are deciding to run in their communities, and I've met Derek Sharp, and John Grant. You guys have an ideal. I think you're idealists. I like it. I'm an idealist. I've gone against every rule I can usually break. If there's something to break, I'll try and break it. Not a problem. If there's something to be said against something and it needs to be said, I'll say it. But it hasn't made me the most sought after person in the world. And I think my question for you guys is, what makes you think that you can actually crack this code? People don't, they like what you say, but are they going to elect you?
I don't know. But I do know this, Garth. I always respect the person that stands up to a bully in the schoolyard.
Yeah.
Always have. And I like to be the person that stands up to them. Sometimes you get the daylights beat out of you. But you know what? You feel good at the end of the day. And something else, Garth. After you stand up to that bully that no one else stood up to, it's amazing the friends you have the next day.
Yeah, that's
the
true.
People that collect around you. Are we going to win this election? we're not going to win this election. We're going to get some seats. I don't want to say I can guarantee it, but I can't guarantee that. But we're going to get some seats. Jack McLaren will be one. Elizabeth Marshall maybe another one. Derek Sharp might be one. I may be one. The point is, we have a voice, and we're going to have an elected voice in Parliament, and they're going to be forced to listen to us.
What do you think that the opportunity is for Ontario? I did a show recently about talking about businesses being incentivized to move to the United States, to take, like, for example, Kisco Freezies being courted amongst many Ontario companies, being courted to go down to the U.S. and being induced, being seduced, I'd rather say, by free release,
taxes,
free taxes.
Free building taxes for 8 years, that sort of thing.
Right. So, here we are in Ontario. If we could paint it the way Bob Yachik and the Trillium Party would be, how would you keep these companies here?
Okay, the obvious one is low hydro rates. We have to start back. We have to get back to the low hydro rates. But why don't we act like what made this province great at one time? Be capitalists. Understand value for dollar. Why are we always waiting for the federal government to send junkets down to the States or Mexico or China? Why don't we put on our big boy shoes, Garth? We are, 13.6 million people in this country. Let's tell Ottawa what we want. Let's start opening up our trade doors ourselves, going down to the States and having individual communities. For instance, we
don't have a delegate. We don't have a delegation that does that.
Let's do it.
Right. So you're saying it could be done?
Anything can be
done. Would it help? Companies are being lured out there. The labor dollars went up, which people say is not an issue, but I agree it is. People are now talking about cap and trade. Cap and trade. Who I had a guy debate me on it recently. He said, I don't agree that cap and trade's a bad idea. I said, it's not a bad idea. It's just a rotten idea. The way that they're trying to implement it. But here are all these companies that are being seduced to go to the U.S. If you could paint it, one, you said just now that you would go down to the States and you start to work with the trade. But we have the Trump issue down in the U.S. Not as easy to do as Trumpism is creeping across. What could Bob Yachik and the Trillium Party get behind in order to keep these companies from actually leaving Ontario?
Okay. Number one, cap and trade is a bad idea, Garth. I'm not letting you slide that one through there. It's a really bad idea because it punishes success in business. But, okay. But why not let municipalities, why not open municipalities to start courting businesses to come to Canada?
But
how do you do that?
How do they do it? Because I live in Durham Region, and I don't think we've done any. They send delegations.
There's a rule against being allowed to give a tax break to new businesses.
Yes, but we did a GM. But GM, we gave them all kinds of tax breaks, and we gave them tax incentives.
There's a rule against. Allow my municipality. I'm running a Newmarket Aurora. Why not allow my municipality, allow the council to go down there and say, okay, we have this industrial land up here, ABC company. You're going to be allowed to come up here. There's an empty building there right now that we had to foreclose on because it couldn't make money anymore because the company went to Mexico.
Right.
And we're going to allow you to have that building for 6 years. They're going to bring employment into this place. And we're not, if they want to give them money, let them make that decision. I don't believe in corporate welfare, but I do believe in courting. Now, the problem we run into there is this. Now we have picking winners and losers, and I am truly against that as well. But allow democracy to take over. Allow the community, our elected officials, our municipal officials, to start making moves on that.
So currently, a lot of the viewers won't understand that it's illegal. It's illegal for them to give inducements and to be able to give tax breaks. Mm-hmm. Correct. But there's got to be a way around this. Where does it have to change?
You get 5 businessmen in a room, there's nothing illegal. That's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but I'm starting to believe it a little bit. Make things happen. We have 360,000 regulations in this province, and we're so handcuffed with regulatory bodies, so many regulations. Cut us loose a little bit. When you have 360,000 rules to follow, it's the same as not having any rules. You can always find why you can't do something.
A friend of mine has a business that's about an $8 million size company. So it's a healthy size company by Canadian standards. one of the things that's driving him crazy is that when he crossed over this threshold, now his HST was all payable monthly. His everything had to be payable monthly. His cost expenditures cash flow has changed. His hydro rates, he's in the middle. He's not in the industrial side, so he's not getting hammered there, but he's still feeling the pinch of that of the electrical bills that he's got. And then now he's been saddled with this extra labor cost that he wasn't really planning on. Not that he objects to paying people a wonderful living wage, or not a wonderful living wage, but a more living wage. But it's crushing him to try and keep up month to month. And the trickle down effect is on all his employees because they feel the pressure. They feel the pressure that the owner's feeling, that he has to meet these deadlines that he never had to meet before. You're saying to me that municipally that there is some opportunity here. I've never seen it in my 20 some odd years around media. I've never seen municipal governments, except for Hazel McCallion, who actually did something in Mississauga. I've never seen any municipal government do anything to help encourage business. And it seems like they're against that, number one. Number two is that they always say that they always defer to the province. Well, the province says we can't do this. The province says we can't do that. And it's always a finger-pointing game back and forth.
Always passing the buck.
Right. But, Bob, what do you know that other people, what do you know that could work? Because right now they're all saying it can't work.
Well, the Canadians, Ontario in particular, are being beat down to death. We are starting to think that we can't make things happen. We're starting to be told every single day why something can't be done. Don't get a bigger car. What we can do is open our eyes. The government can make any rules, any regulations they want.
Well, the Liberal government's proved that.
Honest to God, eh? But let's make some rules that help people. We have too many levels of government that are covering their butts. It's everyone's fault but my fault, is what the mantra for every level of government. Who does what? Well, all they know is it's not my fault. No matter what happens, I can go to any politician and they will show why it's not their fault.
So listen, as we head off just for this segment right now, the question really comes down to what you guys have to answer is standing up and educating. How can you best educate the electorate to not fall for the same old? That's probably the biggest challenge that Trillium's got to do. And if you could do that, you probably could grab more seats than you'd expect.
It's a big nut to crack, Garth.
Thanks.
And you know, when I first started this, I thought the stuff we've done so far, what we've done is magic. We have had a person from a major party come over to the Trillium Party, a fringe party. Never been done in the history of the.
It's no small feat.
That's no small. Never been done in the history of the country. Then we had 623 members move from one party in one riding alone come over to us. Now let me tell you how this worked out. I can tell when I send out emails. I have the program that I have. I can tell who opens them up. I've had some major news institutions look at them over 70 times, open them up 70. It's hard to open an email 70 times. What that means is they sent it around to the entire editorial board and reporters. They all looked at it, and then they made the decision not to publicize that. 4 riding associations from other political parties canceled it and come and join the Trillium Party. Never been publicized. We've even had a local paper in where I'm running take me off their mail list. They don't want to have my press releases to them anymore. That's the paper, the local paper. So you know by who you don't do that to? A fringe party that doesn't count, Garth. You do that because they're afraid of us, and you block us whenever they can because they're afraid of us. The voice will get out. Are we going to take government this time? No, but the seed is planted. When you have the opposition party in the name of the PCs steal our platform, we've done our job right up to that stage. When they steal our platform, now is where it's getting out. Will they carry it home? I don't think so. He's already canceled 3 things so far on it, and that's not even election having started. But it's a start. He knows what needs to be said to win, and he's saying what the Trillium Party has been saying for 4 years. And God bless him. If Doug Ford wins with the PCs, let's hope he brings something that the Trillium Party has. So far, he's canceled on 3 things: free votes, the marijuana in the LCBO style versus private sector, and the sex ed curriculum. And that's even before it started. So who knows what's coming on after that, after he wins. I don't, but I have a good suspicion based on past behavior. Trillium Party's voice is being heard. They're afraid of us. And we're trying hard to get into this major debate right now. And when we do get on there, you're going to hear. You're going to see.
You
some
should
action.
actually. You know what you should do is this: if you don't get on there, then you should just be YouTubing from outside, like somebody told me you should do. I know we got to head off to break right now, so stick around. And there's more of the Trillium Talk TV. We'll be back, and it's been a pleasure to sit with you for a while. So one of the things, Bob, is that on doing my television show over the years. I've watched people platform. I've watched people, I myself, sometimes when I know that when the camera's on and the mic's on, I have that persona that I think I need to do on television. But, we were talking just before, they had the cameras rolling now. And I thought maybe just better that we just sort of chat about things. A lot of people are very ignorant about politics. We hated a lot of our leaders before. I mean, I'm old enough to remember not liking Ernie Eves. I remember not liking Frank Miller. I remember not liking David Peterson. I remember not liking when Bob Ray.
Like every single one that's been voted out.
Almost every one of them. But I don't know why. If you had to ask me or ask the average person, what was it about previous governments that drove them crazy, that made them decide that this one had to go and the next one had to come in?
Well,
You've been around this for like 30 years. Or
more. I can come up with instances for most of these people. Miller, it was because of the Catholic school board and the public school board being separated.
Right.
And so that was the big thing. Then back then it was a huge issue. It's not so much an issue now.
Right.
I think almost everyone, David Peterson, they say he was being punished because he called an early election because of opportunism.
Right.
And we got Bob Ray, which destroyed the province. Worse than 100%. Kathleen Wynne. Yes, I said worse than Kathleen Wynne.
Well, Bob, you remember their acceptance speech? And see, I grew up in Winnipeg. I grew up in Manitoba as a kid. And we ended up with NDP governments, and it was tragic for business. And I remember, so this is back, I guess, when Ray was elected, was it 19?
Was it in the 83 or
so?
something?
So when I was DJing in a bar at the time, and when the election happened, all these young kids are in their 20s were super excited. I said, they've never run a profitable province yet. Wait to see what happens now. And of course, Ray's acceptance speech was, "We don't know what to do. We didn't think we were going to win." But then he went off to be a liberal.
I got a side story on that one, which you might find interesting. So I'm with a friend of mine who was working in Queen's Park. He was one of these supercomputer gurus way back when Bob Ray was not the leader under David Peterson. He was working for the legislature, and so we were out at a pub. And one of Bob Ray's, I guess Bob Ray and his team, they went to a conference on Lake Simcoe up there. So we get this, I won't say names. So we get this phone call. We're in a pub doing what my friend and I do in a pub, drink and...
Right. What anybody would do in a pub.
Watch you DJ.
Watch me be a disc jockey, sure.
So we're talking there, and I get this phone call, and I go, "You won't believe who that is. It's such and such a person." And he said... And the guy said something along the lines of, "You can't believe this. We're going to win."
This is well before.
This is about 8 days or so. I guess they did their polling. And I'm there. No way. It'll never ever win. And he said, our friend says, "We're going to win this election. I'm telling you right now." I couldn't believe it then. And then when the next day when I opened up the paper, and you know how they had the big map of Ontario with all the different colors, it was all orange, and I'm going, well, somebody screwed up. They messed up the color scheme from the start. And so they knew a little bit before, but it's like the dog that caught its tail.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, now what do I do with it?
So it leads people to think that perhaps 8 days earlier than somebody figured this was rigged. I mean, this is the problem with politics. People don't think it's a rigged game.
They try to vote strategically sometimes, and wheels always fall off at night.
So how does somebody? Would you take a look at all the leaders we didn't like? I can't think of. I remember when Peterson came in. It was my family at the time. We were going through some health issues. It was in vitro fertilization back in the day, and Peterson then came in, and he changed some of the rules. It was just horrible. Every government I think about doesn't seem to they're friendly, but a lot of people don't realize that. No matter which one, we've ended up here today and they all seem to. You have a slogan. You guys say they're all the same, and
They're all
to
the same.
blame.
They're all to blame.
So, but people don't realize what they're to blame for. Like the NDP will say, "Well, we weren't in power," but the Conservatives, when they were there, when Mike Harris said we were against them selling off, the 407. Everybody blames, but I would love for one day for somebody to say, well, actually, you guys were advised. You were part of that decision making. You decided not to say anything at Queen's Park. Well, who could actually go back historically and say, yeah, you were on your watch, even though you were in opposition and you were actually in the minority, you still were behind it because when you got into power, you didn't repeal it.
Garth, they're out there every day. Okay, so let's it's often said, but people don't want to remember it. I'll give you two examples. One is Vic Fideli regarding the Samsung deal.
Right.
Before the last election, I forget. I won't call it the Auditor General, but some authority figure come out and he talked about how this was a complete failure, bad deal for the Ontario government, and it was going to cost us bajillion dollars.
Right.
And he didn't, and he didn't say anything about it. Yet it would have probably ensured the Liberal loss if he had said something about it. But he didn't say anything about it. Now, when you
So helping people that are watching this, understanding that somebody had the opportunity to grab the stage and make mention and cause some other party
and they didn't
to falter, and they didn't say anything.
But they also sometimes do it. So now a lot of things with the PCs. Well, for instance, with Patrick Brown, and he, we hardly remember him now, don't we? Unbelievable. The guy was running the show for how many years, and we hardly remember it. Every caucus member that's sitting in there right now voted for everything they're advocating against right now.
Right.
They did. But what happens is people say, well, we have to support them. We have to, and they go with this. Just hear me out on this one. Their logic is this, Garth. Well, we have to say that in order to get elected, and then they're going to change it when they get in. Why in the world would anyone that wants power, as much as any of these people want power, say, we're going to change it all when we get in because we don't want power the next election?
But I agree with you. But here's the thing. People say they're against something, but what party has ever actually reversed somebody else's decision, other party's decision, when they say, okay, we're going to take something back. We're going to,
all the same, all to blame.
Right, but when they finally get in when they get in power, they don't repeal it. They don't change it. It never gets done. So all of them have been the same. This is what's frustrating most people for not being a voter. How many?
Why would they, Garth? Because they know that it's going to work because their turn is going to come up.
So my question is, statistically, how many people vote in a provincial election?
Well, it's moving around from high 30s up to about 54, 55%.
Is it that high now?
In some areas, and the real. In some of the ridings, the highest you'll get to 50s is about 55. But it's actually mostly just under 50%.
So a lot of people, I had a municipal politician tell me one time, he said, Garth, we don't say a whole lot because at 26% of the people that are voting, he said, all I have to do is keep the other percentage of the people, 75%, let's just call it that way, 74% of the people unaware, don't ruffle any feathers. I only have to make sure that whoever is voting, don't get any new voters out there. This is what the mantra is for most municipal elections. I have to imagine the same thing for provincial.
It's don't rock the boat, right? Because right now, it's playing with such close numbers. A lot of the ridings are switching between 5% of the vote.
Right.
Will decide whether it's PC or Liberal. So don't stir up too many fires here. Make sure you only mess up 5%.
So the people that are getting ready, that are watching, hopefully this and others that don't vote right now, they could actually cause an upset. But historically, right?
Most of the people.
But historically, people haven't gotten off their duff to do anything.
No.
How many percentage would you have to? We don't have to grow by about 2 or 3% more voters than we have today.
If
that would
you
actually
change
switch
6%. The government would change.
It's 6%.
6%. There'd be something like 40% of the ridings would flip their vote.
Really? It's not impossible.
Oh my gosh! No, it's the farthest thing from
impossible.
impossible.
Most people feel hopeless. So if
most
you're saying
people
it's only
feel
6%,
powerless because they You've been beaten down.
Yeah.
You've been told so often that you can't do something.
Yeah.
Don't drive a big car. Consume less electricity. We're all in this crushing thing. Like you've been trained not to be.
But most people don't feel that. And you're saying only 6%. If there was 6% more voters, it would actually switch the election.
Something like 40 ridings would switch overnight.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's
6%.
possible. So it's not impossible.
What's happened?
So you guys could be a deal. You guys could be a deal. You guys could be the
Garth,
deal.
we did the numbers somewhere, and I think it was 40-some change numbers. If we put candidates into 40% of the ridings in these what we call swing ridings, and there's some in them 1% of the vote will change one government from another. Yeah, so if we got 6%, if we affected 6% of the ridings, we would be deciding whether it's going to be a PC or a Liberal riding. If you want to know what power is, Garth, that's power.
Yeah.
When now they have to, I promise you, next election, that's this election.
Yeah,
they're having to cater to what we were saying.
So
you think that's accidental?
No, and it's cool. And I think I just wanted as we wrap this up. I mean, what I wanted people to do is understand some things that they have to go back to look at all the leaders that they didn't like in provincial politics and say to them, when you elected the next party to come in, did they actually do what they said they were going to do and go against some of the things that the other party had already put in place? And I think the clear answer is no. So what's the point? But you said with only 4% people voting that never voted before, this whole thing can be turned on its head.
With 2% of the voting population, Garth, we could change which government gets in office.
That's cool.
2%, we could do that.
I can handle 2%. I can't. I don't think we can get more than that. But if 2%, I mean, I know how to vote.
So let's go with we have a handful of very powerful candidates. When I say a handful of very powerful candidates, they're the ones champing at the bit. They're the ones that are getting out there. I have some candidates that are registered now for 4 and 5 debates. I'm having a hard time getting one in my area. I guess I'm just the leader of the Trillium Party.
You and John Grant?
Honest to God, I'm going against Christine Elliott in my riding, so I guess.
Well, actually, you know what? She's used to losing. All right, listen. So let's just cut it. Let's cut it there. Okay, so we'll come back. Let's see what happens in the next couple of months and see how you guys are faring.
Garth, we're gonna celebrate on June the 8th when we have a minority government with the Trillium Party with 5 seats in there that are going to be deciding who gets to win.
2%.
That would be hilarious. That would be the ultimate power. Thanks, Garth.
Thanks, brother.